Nintendo found a winning formula with its Super Smash Bros. Crossover fighting game series, with various attempts over the years by other companies to replicate that success. Some have gotten close and generated decent buzz, like Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl earlier this year, but none have managed to take Smash Bros.' crown. The next game to challenge Super Smash Bros. Is the newly announced Multiversus, a crossover platform fighting game with a roster comprised primarily of Warner Bros. Characters. Multiversus was leaked some time ago, but now it's official. Multiversus will be free to play when it launches for PS4, PS5, PC, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X in 2022, and it's bringing with it dedicated servers, rollback netcode, and seasonal content. The characters include DC Comics heroes like Batman and Superman, as well as Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, fulfilling the meme of seeing Shaggy in a fighting game. One of the ways that Multiversus hopes to stand out from other platform fighting games is its focus on 2v2 cooperative play. 1v1 and 4-player free-for-all modes will also be available, with players able to take advantage of their teammates' abilities. One of the examples given in the Multiversus reveal trailer is Jake the Human from Adventure Time utilizing a rabbit hole made by his partner Bugs Bunny. Another example given was Arya Stark from Game of Thrones using her face-swapping power to complement Superman's laser vision. The Multiversus roster of characters will be voiced by the actors that have been playing them for years, with Kevin Conroy voicing Batman, Tara Strong voicing Harley Quinn, Matthew Lillard voicing Shaggy, Maisie Williams voicing Arya Stark, John DiMaggio voicing Jake the Dog, etc. The use of voice lines should also ensure that Multiversus immediately addresses one of the big complaints that fans had about Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl when it released earlier this year. While many of the game's playable characters were revealed in the trailer, only 3 stages were shown. Each one comes from a universe that Multiversus features characters from, including the DC Comics Batcave, and Island of Themyscira, as well as the Treehouse from the Adventure Time series. Probably the most recognizable stage in the Multiversus reveal trailer is Batman's underground lair and headquarters, the Batcave. The stage is shown a few times in the trailer, with its first appearance at the 0022 mark. The bat symbol on the ground makes the cave instantly recognizable, as do the swarming bats in the background. For fans who can take their eyes off Multiversus' fast-paced combat long enough to check out the details, there are plenty to find. Both the Joker and Bruce Wayne's butler Alfred are visible on the computer screens, as is the Gotham skyline. There are also several spare costumes, the Batmobile, and the animatronic T-Rex that Batman and Robin took as a trophy way back in 1940 SIX's Batman number 35. At one point in the trailer the computer screens change to indicate a swarm of bats traveling upwards, which may be a feature of the stage to allow players to gain height. Sticking with the DC Comics theme, one of the other stages in the Multiversus reveal trailer seemed to be a depiction of the nation of Themyscira. Themyscira is home to the female-only Amazon society, and its most famous daughter, Wonder Woman. Although a little harder to identify than the Batcave, the giant statue of Wonder Woman herself still makes it pretty clear, along with the waterfalls and what may be the Wonder Dome. One version of the Themyscira stage in Multiversus has a single central platform, with smaller floating platforms moving back and forth above it. This should favor Multiversus' more dynamic characters, with plenty of opportunities to drive enemies directly off the edge. In terms of stage events, the huge ACME box in the background is likely to have an effect, as it can be seen wobbling, opening, and firing rockets at various points in the trailer. The final stage highlighted in the Multiversus reveal trailer is the Treehouse from Adventure Time, home to main characters Finn and Jake. The iconic tree is easily recognized by its distinct design, a blending of foliage and furniture. A few different versions of the Adventure Time treehouse appear in the Multiversus reveal trailer. The most basic is a single large platform with 2 smaller static platforms above it. There is also a similar version with the addition of another large platform below the first one, and a third with a branch providing a wall on one side of the platform. Multiversus is set to release in 2022, but there'll be beta tests before the official launch. This will be a free-to-play, cross-platform fighting game, which will unfortunately open doors for microtransactions. In addition to the characters released so far, WB promises there'll be additional skins, seasonal content, and, of course, lots more characters. One thing in particular about the game that has fans excited is the cast of voice actors, many of whom return from the original franchises to voice their characters. 13 characters have been revealed so far. One thing about this is, the fighting game looks so similar to others in the category. It's not a bad thing, but we really need some uniqueness here. Both in visuals, gameplay, and in other stuff. May we have to see what it offers by trying out the betas, and playing it after release. This is one of my reasons I say that PlayStation needs to build their own multiverse, but that does not need to be in this style. It should be different and unique, and PlayStation really needs to step it up, and go on in full force, with investing high budget, and make that separate from the rest. Now, let's take an in-depth look at all the 13 characters revealed so far. Game of Thrones Arya Stark will appear in the game, voiced by Maisie Williams, who played Arya on the TV show. She is an assassin-type character, with special moves Face Stealer and Dagger Slash. This version of Arya has completed her training in Essos with the Faceless Man, making her a powerful fighter. Her tagline for the game is "She rejected being a lady." What she became was something far deadlier. Gotham's Caped Crusader will be voiced by Kevin Conroy in the game, who famously voiced Batman in Batman the Animated Series. Conroy has done an extensive amount of voice work, and is one of Batman fans' favorite versions of The Dark Knight. He also voices Batman in the Injustice games and the Batman Arkham series. Batman is a bruiser-type character, and his special moves include Bat Bomb and Rising Bat. Where there's Batman in a fighting game, it's usually a safe bet that Superman is there too. Multiversus Superman will be voiced by George Newbern. Newbern voices Superman in the Injustice series and a number of animated DC shows. He is also known for voicing Sephiroth in the Final Fantasy franchise, though not in the recent remake of Final Fantasy VII. Superman is another bruiser, with Ice Breath and Meteor Liftoff as special moves. Wonder Woman will be voiced by Abby Trott, who has not previously voiced the Amazonian, but does have extensive voice acting experience. Wonder Woman will be a tank in the game, with special moves Lasso of Truth and Flying Warrior. The final DC character confirmed for Multiversus so far is Harley Quinn. Prolific voice actor Tara Strong will return to the role of Harley, having previously voiced her in multiple animated shows and taking over the role from Arlene Sorkin in the Batman Arkham series. One of the most fun additions to the cast is Scooby-Doo's Shaggy, as voiced by Matthew Lillard. Lillard played Shaggy in the earlier 2000s live-action adaptations of Scooby-Doo. Lillard's version of Shaggy inspired multiple memes across the internet, which the game directly addresses. While Lillard has voiced Shaggy in plenty of animated content, Multiversus version of Shaggy will be the Ultra Instinct Shaggy from memes with Super Saiyan abilities. Shaggy is another bruiser with ZOINKS and Power Uppercut. The eponymous Steven Universe and Garnet from Rebecca Sugar's Steven Universe will appear in the game. With a dedicated fanbase, many will be excited to take control of these two characters, but only Garnet will be voiced by the original voice actor, Estelle. Steven will be voiced by Daniel Divineer in his video game debut. Garnet is a bruiser with Heart Song and Friendship Blast as her special moves, while Steven is a support character with special moves Bubble Boy and Shield Stepper. Before Steven Universe, Rebecca Sugar worked on Pendleton Ward's explosively popular Adventure Time. Excitingly, John DiMaggio will be returning to voice Jake, and is very well known for his other roles, including Bender in Futurama and Marcus Phoenix in Gears of War. Finn's voice actor, Jeremy Shada, returns as well, which is great news for hardcore Adventure Time fans wanting to battle with either character. Finn is an assassin with High Five, Dude and Backpack em up as special moves, while Jake is a bruiser with special moves Rubber Stomach and Dude Stretchin' Out. Of course, Warner Brothers' most famous rabbit will also be appearing in the game, voiced by Eric Bauza. Bauza is the current voice of Bugs Bunny, as well as Daffy Duck and a host of other characters in Looney Tunes cartoons. He is the seventh person to voice the character since he first emerged in 1938. Bugs will be a mage/ranged character with special moves a Safe Investment and Special Deliv Rocket. The smart aleck and elusive rabbit is sure to not be the only Looney Tunes character in the game, but as the most famous it's suitable he is the first announced. The ever-quarreling cat and mouse duo from Tom and Jerry will be teaming up as one fighter in Multiversus. Eric Bauza will also be voicing Tom and Jerry, who were created by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera. Like Bugs, these are mage/ranged fighters with slingshot sharpshooter and rocket mouse as special moves. Finally, Raindog is an original character for the game, whose real name is unpronounceable. Raindog is from the world of Xanathir, where they were a guardian to the royal family and tasked with keeping them safe. Raindog is a royal guardian who has been separated from his home somehow. Raindog's special moves include Love Leash, Dude, and Power Crystal, and he's a support character. It's unclear whether there will be other original characters in the game, but so far the internet loves the mysterious Raindog. With many more characters to be announced, there's plenty of surprises in store in Multiversus. It's not apparent yet whether the game could rival the success of Super Smash Bros., but the lineup so far sure is intriguing. It's not known why WB has stocked the Multiversus roster with plenty of well-known characters from across different franchises, just to add a completely new original character to the mix. They've boasted that their roster has some of the most recognizable characters, so perhaps they were looking to leverage this with the addition of some unknown fighters. With the promise of more characters yet to come, this could hint at WB's intention to add even more original designs among the famous faces within Multiversus roster. The group of characters available to players already represents a diverse mix. Players will be able to see how Batman matches up against Arya Stark, or how Steven Universe fares against Tom and Jerry. WB has also highlighted that the original or well-known voice actors will be used to bring the characters to life as well, adding another element for fans of the franchises to enjoy. For gamers looking for a more solo experience, this will also be available in Multiversus 2. Although support characters like Raindog may not seem like the obvious choice for this kind of gameplay, WB has assured gamers that even though the 165-year-old Raindog looks cute and cuddly, they're still a fierce fighter with abilities aided by the gem of power that they wear. As cool as these characters are, they only make up a fraction of the properties WB could consider. Even with everyone revealed for Multiversus roster so far, there are only 13 characters out of the hundreds that WB owns the rights to. On top of this, a title like Multiversus is a prime candidate for crossover potential, including rumors saying LeBron James could be a DLC fighter. With this in mind, there are quite a few people who would be perfect fits for the fighting game. Harry Potter has a face that 2 decades worth of young people can recognize. Even as fans wait for the release date of Hogwarts Legacy, HBO Max has already confirmed a Harry Potter reunion special coming in January 2022. Incorporating the young wizard and his friends and enemies like Voldemort in Multiversus could be major for the game and also draw in a lot of fans of the series. Rick and Morty are newer characters compared to many of the fighters already confirmed for Multiversus, but they have a lot of potential. With a strong fanbase and a varying list of abilities thanks to the show's infinite multiverse, there could be traditional or more unique takes on them in the game. Among these options are iconic versions like Morty from the Edge of Tomorty episode, or thanks to a recent Warner Bros. Trademark for Pickle Rick, a much different version of the pessimistic scientist could make a Multiversus appearance. King Kong could be the perfect brawler for the Multiversus fighting arena, and already has a history of facing off against other iconic characters. While Godzilla has shown itself to be pretty dominant, Kong has battled Godzilla to become king of the monsters, and there probably isn't a better place for the gorilla to train. Given the character's long history, there'd be quite a few people excited to see King Kong appear in Multiversus. Beetlejuice has had video game appearances, but the list of games isn't very long. Still, he would fit into Multiversus perfectly. Given the character's antics in the face of real danger, alongside his laissez-faire views on death, he would likely be a great matchup against morally strong characters like Arya. On top of this, Beetlejuice as a movie has shown a lot of staying power over the decades despite minimal new releases. While he's more comedic than terrifying when put next to monsters like Pennywise, this would be a greater strength within the context of Multiversus than it is a weakness. Multiversus has a lot of other potential characters as well, with Beetlejuice and others like Gandalf from Lord of the Rings only scratching the surface. The popularity of crossover-style games only seems to be growing, so getting a diverse list of characters will help widen the lead Multiversus already seems to have on its competitors. Its 2022 release date also means we should be able to look forward to more announcements soon, with new roster reveals and gameplay likely making rounds on the internet before launch. I hope to see more characters and more unique locations with dynamic backgrounds and all bells and whistles. We will see if it hits or misses.
Wet.
Okay, now moving forward, we are gonna discuss about some delays and changed release dates for some games of 2022. Pragmata has been one of gaming's largest mysteries ever since it was announced last year during one of Sony's handful of PS5 reveal events. While hardly anything is known about the game publicly, one new detail was revealed earlier this week. It won't be releasing in 2022 as its initial announcement trailer said. According to the official Pragmata Twitter account, the game has been delayed into 2023 in order to ensure this will be an unforgettable adventure. The delay announcement came in the form of a video that features the mysterious young blonde girl who was one of the only characters shown off in the reveal trailer, as she holds a sign with a crossed-out 2022 with an arrow pointing to hastily scribbled 2023 and sorry. It is a cute way to say such thing, and I am hoping to see some update in the near future. As an additional way of thanking fans for their patience, Capcom also released a new promotional image for the game. The image itself doesn't do a whole lot to help fans understand exactly what it is that Pragmata will be about, but it certainly adds to the overall tone that the studio has been pushing for it since the game's original announcement. The image shows the same young girl standing in a sleek white room in front of what looks like some sort of pipe that's been cut open, revealing hundreds of strands of colored threads. Like the rest of Pragmata's marketing, this isn't really a whole lot to go on by itself, but looking at the delay message also paints a picture of what fans can expect. In the written message announcing the delay, the frowning face shimmers a few different rainbow colors reminiscent of the ones coming out of the tube in the image, before returning to the black ink color. While that also doesn't help fans understand much about the game directly, it does seem to suggest that the changing neon colors might have something to do with the narrative element of the game and are more than simple aesthetic choices. The general lack of information surrounding Pragmata has kept the entire project shrouded in mystery, which it seems like it will stay in until it gets closer to its release date. As a result, those looking for concrete information on the game might not be able to find much, as the Pragmata Twitter account only has 5 listed tweets and Capcom has been relatively tight-lipped about it following its announcement. The only recent public information that's been revealed is that earlier this year, Capcom said that development was going well and that the game is making progress. The next delay is Saints Row. Saints Row was officially unveiled at Gamescom earlier this year with a confirmed release date of February 25, 2022. It is a reboot of the Saints Row series that reduces some of the absurdity found in Saints Row 4, and also aims to bring a better balance to its themes as well as the overall tone. Its developer Volition was acquired by Deep Silver in 2013, and has since released Saints Row 4, Get Out of Hell, and Agents of Mayhem. While Saints Row 4 was praised for its goofy storyline and arsenal of superpowers available to players, Agents of Mayhem launched to a mixed reception. In 2019, it was confirmed that Volition is developing the next main entry in the Saints Row franchise, but fans had to wait until August 2021 to see gameplay. While it seemed like Saints Row will release just a few months after being revealed, the reboot has now been hit with a delay. Volition has just announced that Saints Row will be delayed from February 25 to August 23. The developer mentions that had Saints Row released on the original date, it would not have been able to meet fans' expectations as well as internal standards set by the team. Volition wants to create the best Saints Row game yet, and it needs more time in order to fully realize this vision. Volition also confirms that this delay is primarily focused on improving the overall quality and polish of the game. The beginning of 2022 is already stacked with noteworthy releases as Dying Light 2 Stay Human, Destiny 2 The Witch Queen, and Horizon Forbidden West are all scheduled to come out in February. More importantly, Saints Row shared its launch with the highly anticipated Elden Ring, which was delayed from its initial release date of January 21st. This delay not only gives Volition more time to fine-tune various aspects of Saints Row, but it also avoids competition with several popular franchises. As of today, there is no other major release in August 2022, and it allows Saints Row to perhaps capture the attention of a larger audience. Post its launch, Volition plans to release 3 expansions for Saints Row as a part of the Expansion Pass, which is included in the Gold Edition, but can also be purchased separately. However, the remaster of Saints Row III is only available to players who buy the Platinum Edition of Saints Row. The third one here is different, as console-exclusive PlayStation Kung Fu game Sifu is now going to be released 2 weeks earlier than previously thought, which is brilliant because previously it was sandwiched between Horizon Forbidden West and Elden Ring. If it was gonna be released in between those juggernauts, it could have been dimmed away. So, moving the release date up is definitely gonna help it. The PS blog post on Sifu had much to say about how combat works in the game as well. Having previously made the 2017 martial arts game Absolver, Slocklap is applying its knowledge of the combat art to a single-player game this time around. Marketing manager at Slocklap, Felix Gerczynski, explains that the team wanted to draw heavily from martial arts films such as Old Boy, The Raid and John Wick. Felix explains that the close-quarters combat found in those films was especially inspirational to the team, and led to Sifu having the classic aesthetics of those films. Faithful animations, camera framings and above all realistic combat, will lend players the feeling they are the main character of a kung fu movie. Felix explains that Slocklap designed a system titled Structure that emulates the real ferocity of breaking an enemy's stance. Both the player and their enemies have stagger gauges which, upon filling, will allow the player to initiate a powerful takedown on their opponent, effectively ending the fight. If the player's gauge is depleted, they will find themselves incapacitated for a short duration, leaving themselves open to attacks. Blocking attacks will fill the gauge quickly and, Felix says, the act of parrying in Sifu will create opportunities to immediately stagger an enemy without filling the gauge. There will also be unlockable skills to aid players in building up combos. In Sifu, players will also need to make use of their environments, effectively tossing furniture into enemies' feet, ducking under or diving over tables, throwing items or fashioning weapons from objects around them. This acts as a way for players to clear the gap to an opponent in a quick fashion, while also putting them off guard. When finally getting in the vicinity of an opponent, players can utilize what Slocklap calls focus. This technique is a resource that builds up over a fight and allows the player to enter a slow MO state, wherein they can target a weak point and enact a devastating attack that can seriously disable or wound the enemy. Different focus attacks will be part of unlockable skills as well, creating even more customization for the player's character. Seeing as Sifu was releasing the same day as other high-profile releases such as Horizon Forbidden West, Elden Ring, Destiny The Witch Queen expansion, this earlier release date will be a good spot to let this highly inventive martial arts game a chance to breathe. Hopefully, Sifu will find its audience to make it a rousing success for developer Slocklap. Speaking of new games, after a quiet controversy surrounding the future of the Judgment series, Sega reveals that it is working on a new IP along with Yakuza 8. After years of struggles with localization projects and low sales, 2020 was finally the breakout year for Sega's Yakuza series with the release of Yakuza Like a Dragon. This success has reshaped the future of developer Ryuji Gattaca Studio, which has recently seen a major shakeup with general director and series creator Toshihiro Nagoshi leaving Sega last month along with series director Daisuke Sato. Speaking in a new interview, current studio head Masayoshi Yokoyama revealed that RGG Studios is now working on two major projects, the much-anticipated Yakuza 8 and a brand new IP. Earlier this year, doubts were cast over the future of RGG Studios' Yakuza spin-off series Judgment, as various Japanese news outlets began to report that protagonist Takeyuki Yagami's actor Takuya Kimura's talent agency had been interfering with Sega's plans for the series, namely releasing a PC version. The reports implied that the infamously restrictive agency did not want to enable PC users to modify Kimura's appearance in the game, which is used for Yagami's likeness. While updates regarding this situation have been slim since the initial reports, all signs seem to indicate that Sega is done with the Judgment franchise, and Lost Judgment is likely to be the final entry in the series due to this fallout. Further adding to this speculation is a new interview with RGG Studios leader Masayoshi Yokoyama conducted by Famitsu. In this interview, Yokoyama commented on future titles that RGG Studios is currently developing, such as the previously confirmed Yakuza 8, which has been confirmed to feature the return of Yakuza, like a dragon protagonist Ichiban Kasuga, who RGG Studios sees as the face of the franchise for the next decade. Furthermore, Yakuza 8 will take place multiple years after the events of Like a Dragon, meaning some time will have passed since Ichiban's last outing. Finally, Yokoyama claimed that the studio will continue to cherish the Judgment series, seemingly concluding that the studio is not planning any new installments right now. While this is undoubtedly sad for Judgment fans, the change in leadership at RGG Studios could be the deciding factor to allow the studio to breathe new creativity into a new IP, one that doesn't even have to tie directly into the world of Yakuza, much like other games from the studio like the often forgotten Binary Domain. As for when these titles could release, RGG Studios has kept a fairly consistent yearly release schedule for its titles, meaning we could see Yakuza 8 as early as next year, likely with the same worldwide release schedule as Lost Judgment. Game development is a lengthy process that sees companies and developers cooperating together in order to produce high-quality titles and technology. This includes big AAA company collaborations, with Microsoft and Sega being one of them. This collaboration between the two companies was announced earlier this month, stating that they were going to use the strengths of both to form a special next-gen development alliance regarding any future game projects. This collaboration was part of a larger set of rumors, which indicated that Sega itself was being acquired by Microsoft, or that future games developed by Sega would become Xbox exclusives. A recent fiscal earnings report from Sega details more on what this alliance entails, along with the clarification of what will happen to future game releases. The main reason why Sega and Microsoft are partnering up is due to the former's desire to create brand new super games, which are described to be huge live service games, similar to Sega's own Phantasy Star Online. For that, Sega would need servers, which is where Microsoft's Azure servers come into play. They would be used to help host, deploy, and develop some of these ambitious games. Phantasy Star Online 2 already uses Azure servers, so it makes sense for Sega to use something familiar and is seeing great success. The report says that it would be considering investing 100 billion yen, approximately $882 million, into this goal. It then goes on to describe how Sega and Microsoft have had a close business relationship, as well as how Microsoft was on board with the ambitious super game concept, especially since Sega have developed games for Microsoft like Halo Wars 2. Sega then clarifies and confirms that this partnership will not lead to Xbox exclusive games. We are not talking about releasing games to Microsoft exclusively, but rather to develop super game that will be delivered to the world together, with their technical support, the company speaker said. So despite the rumors, this alliance between Microsoft and Sega will only be on the technology side, and any future live service games will be supported through Microsoft's Azure servers. The legendary developer behind Marble Madness, Crash Bandicoot, Final Fantasy VII, Sonic, Knack and Marvel's Spider-Man and the GOAT of console designers sat down with Wired to discuss his role in creating the PS5 and bringing its systems to life. In a video from Wired released on Friday, Mark Cerny, the lead system architect behind the PS5 hardware, breaks down the process of creating the incredibly popular and powerful console. Cerny touts the widespread adoption of ray tracing as just as significant a shift as the move from 2D pixelated graphics to 3D polygonal graphics in the 1990s. The video gives an insight into the pre-production process of the PS5, as well as the feedback the team received from the game development community. In addition to discussing ray tracing, Cerny talks through the PS5's other important inclusions: the SSD, GPU, CPU, integrated I/O, DualSense wireless controller, and more. Cerny states that the design process for each new console begins with brainstorming. At the beginning, there's a list of the ideas that hardware architects wanted to include with the previous console, but couldn't. Then, there's a second list, which includes all of the things that the game development community would like to see. Cerny says that Epic's Tim Sweeney was among the most vocal advocates for the inclusion of an SSD in the PS5, a decision that has resulted in many games boasting loads that take mere seconds, and could revolutionize game design. It was originally intended for the PS4, but somehow they couldn't do it there. Mark Cerny here elaborates on the potential of ray tracing, saying that it is the start of the third phase of gaming. Ray tracing is an important feature in gaming. From audio to shadows, from lighting to reflections, and to global illumination, ray tracing plays a key part in both the visuals and audio, and in the overall immersive experience. The PlayStation 5 was built, keeping the developers in mind. As stated by Cerny in this video and the presentation he gave in the road to PS5, it makes sense why the PlayStation 5 keeps outperforming the Xbox Series X in most of the games, and have better shadow, texture, lighting and ray tracing. We can see the impact of ray tracing through Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man Remastered, and through the ray-traced audio and effects in Returnal. Along with these features, the DualSense controller adds even more immersion with the features it brings to the table. While haptic feedback makes us feel through the game, the adaptive triggers create a whole new area of accessibility and touch control variety. Mark Cerny and others at PlayStation really engineered the PlayStation 5 to be the most innovative gaming hardware ever created, and I cannot wait to see the full potential of it and what the future of gaming holds.
I'm Mark Cerny, lead system architect of PlayStation 5, and I'm here to talk about what we made and how we made it. My background is as a game developer. I've worked on anything from Marble Madness in the golden age of the arcade, to Crash Bandicoot on the first PlayStation, to Marvel's Spider-Man on PlayStation 5. 40 years of development, my God. Okay, moving on. As lead system architect of the PlayStation consoles, I focus on the chips on the motherboard and the software systems that directly use them. It's very technical work, but the ultimate users of these systems are developers trying to make games. So it's great to have worked with a lot of teams over the years and understand a bit about what helps them and what just gets in their way. The first step in developing any console is a brainstorming session. The hardware team has a list, all the features that couldn't make it into the previous console, as well as, of course, a number of new ideas. But there's also a longer list, and that longer list is all of the things that the game development community would like to see. The SSD. We've been getting requests for an SSD all the way back to PlayStation 4. In particular, Tim Sweeney, who is the visionary founder of Epic Games, he said hard drives were holding the industry back. And he didn't say hard drives, though. He said rusty, spinning media. The game developers wanted to get away from hard drives because that's where all the game data is stored. I mean, whatever it is, character models, animation, music, movies, it's slow to get to. And if you need seeks, meaning you have to load a lot of little pieces of data from here and there, it's particularly slow to get to. If it takes 30 seconds or a minute to load into a level, that's just lost time. So-called fast travel, that's still taking 15 seconds or 30 seconds to get from one side of the map to the other side. A bit of this is less obvious. It's filler. It's that elevator ride that hides the load. It's that unskippable movie. It's that narrow passageway that the player character has to slowly ease their way through. Now, I've been there myself as a designer on some of these projects where the map had to be just these twisty little passageways whose sole purpose was to hide the loads off of the media. On PlayStation 4, fast travel can take anything, depending on the game, from 15 seconds to a minute. On PlayStation 5, much faster, anything from a fraction of a second to a few seconds. That means no more subway rides in Marvel's Spider-Man, which is really a shame. I like those subway rides. The big challenge of hardware is working through the sheer number of details involved in creating a console. An SSD, as an example, will the game be entirely resident on the SSD, or is the SSD a cache and the game is on Blu-ray or some other kind of optical media? Do you want to use SLC or MLC or TLC or QLC? What kind of functionality do you want to have in your custom flash controller, and how much do you want to have in your main custom chip? Developers asked for an NVMe SSD with at least a gigabyte a second of read speed. And we looked at that. We decided to go for maybe 5 or 10 times that speed. It's always good to have a high target there. Bringing the game development community into the hardware development process is something that's pretty recent, historically speaking. Over the years, that was a dialogue that personally, as a developer, I've really been wanting to have. I'm looking for the developers that give me the hardest time, and the ones who really have strong opinions about what it is that they need to make the game that they've been dreaming of. Those are just brutal meetings to be in, but they're good to have because at the end of the day, you're making a stronger console. We decided on a strategy we called integrated I/O. The biggest feature of integrated I/O, at least from a developer standpoint, is invisible compression. Developers have to spend a lot of time and effort loading data in off of media, whether that's a hard drive or an SSD. With the integrated I/O, we take care of all of that. The developers hand off their data to our publishing tools, and then the game runtime just asks for the data, and we handle the decompression for them. We put as much functionality as we could inside of a custom unit in our main chip. The impact of this compression strategy is huge. It varies from game to game, but a few standouts are Subnautica, which is 14 gigabytes on PlayStation 4 and just 4 gigabytes on PlayStation 5. Control Ultimate Edition, which is 50 gigabytes on PlayStation 4 and about half that size on PlayStation 5. And what we found out with the launch titles is that, for example, with Miles Morales, even though it had added all of these high-resolution models and textures for the PlayStation 5 version, the PlayStation 5 version was actually a bit smaller than the PlayStation 4 version. That growth in size from the assets had been offset by the improved technology for compression. The CPU. The choice of the CPU is really important. Pretty much anything you see, hear, or feel, the CPU is involved in. Animation, AI, physics, collision, even things which have their own dedicated units like graphics or the 3D audio. The smarts is still in the CPU. Now, ideally, you just use one incredibly fast CPU, but that technology doesn't exist. And so pretty much any device you use, your PC, your phone, your console, generates the necessary performance through using multiple CPUs. Simulating something like New York City is really complex, particularly when you consider that every pedestrian needs their AI and their animation all executed at what might be 60 frames a second. 8 Zen 2 cores really makes a difference there. The impact of those 8 CPU cores can also be felt in Returnal's battle scenes. There are literally thousands of bullets in flight. Destruction All-Stars is using Zen 2's power for vehicle deformation and destruction. The physics involves quite a bit of CPU processing. There's lots of options for core count. The question is how much of your custom chip you want going into CPUs and how much you want going into the GPU. And when we did our tour, we had some devs that would really like 16 cores, but game development is so graphically oriented that when we explained that we could do that, but the GPU would get smaller, they'd instantly back off. The GPU. As a player, you immediately notice the characters in these games. Hair, eyes, skin, facial animation.
Let's see where this thing will take us.
We've come a long way from what could be done on PlayStation 1. GPUs are fiendishly complex. There's features that are added year after year after year, and this has been going on now for 2 or 3 decades. When we talk to developers, most of the conversation is about GPUs, about this alphabet soup of features that are incredibly important to the graphics engine programmers. They're looking for more performance, they're looking for more flexibility in how they use that performance, they're looking for new features, and they're looking for modifications to the features that they already have. We ended up with a customized AMD Radeon RDNA 2 GPU capable of running at 2.23 gigahertz and 10 teraflops. That's 10 trillion floating point operations a second, as well as having a custom cutting-edge feature set. Epic Games have created a new software technology called Nanite that focuses on the detail that the new hardware technology enables. The idea behind this technology is that no matter how far you zoom into something, no matter how close you get to something, you're still seeing, like the real world, more and more detail. We made a lot of customizations to the GPU. Some of them are smaller, like when PlayStation 5 crashes, it's a lot easier to track down the source of that crash than it was on PlayStation 4. Some of those customizations are giant, like backwards compatibility with PlayStation 4. Backwards compatibility is difficult because there are hundreds of essential GPU features in PlayStation 4 that the developers rely on. And for their games to run flawlessly on PlayStation 5, each of those features needs to be properly included. We also need to sometimes insulate the games from the new PlayStation 5 capabilities. There was a case early on where we ran a multi-million selling PlayStation 4 game on PlayStation 5 and found out that the player character suddenly was just running too fast. And what was happening was the power of PlayStation 5 was translating into higher frame rate, and it broke gameplay. And so to fix that particular bug, we had to put in knobs that would allow us to dial in just how much performance that game could handle. Ray tracing. Without a doubt, the most exciting new GPU feature is ray tracing. One of the big uses of ray tracing is global illumination. In Metro Exodus, light's streaming through a window, it hits the floor, it hits a wall, and that bounce light is what illuminates the scene. Another big use of ray tracing is reflections, like being able to see Spider-Man reflected in the buildings that he's crawling over. It's an impressive effect, but it also shows why a new pipeline is required. If you look at the 50-year history of games, it splits pretty neatly into two eras. The first era, Pac-Man, Sonic the Hedgehog, is games that are built entirely out of flat components. The second era, Crash Bandicoot, Uncharted, these are games built out of 3D triangles with effects on them. Thanks to ray tracing, we're now entering a third era, and the visuals have a capacity to be like nothing we've ever seen before. Ray tracing is radically different technology. It's pure computation. There's a database in RAM that contains a description of the video game world, mostly triangles and boxes, and then there's support in the GPU hardware for seeing if a line intersects that geometry. If the hardware is fast enough, that unlocks new approaches to lighting and shadows and reflections. The catch is, to use this as a developer, you have to build a whole new real-time graphics pipeline. Ray tracing was not one of the key features that the developers asked for, mostly I think because they had difficulty believing they'd have enough ray tracing performance to do anything interesting with it. You can view it as a trade-off. How much effort does it take to adopt that new rendering pipeline versus how much difference does it make visually to what the player is experiencing? Developers immediately dug into the new feature set, and at our very first PlayStation 5 game showcase, we had 6 titles that were using ray tracing. Ray tracing can also be used for shadows. In the real world, the edges of shadows are not perfectly crisp because the light that casts those shadows isn't a point. The light source itself has a size to it. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War uses ray tracing and a lot of additional mathematics to create very realistic looking shadows with the proper softness. Tempest 3D Audio Tech. One of the new features that we're very excited about in PlayStation 5 is 3D audio. And 3D audio is like nothing you've ever heard before. The best way to experience it is with headphones. Conventional stereo audio feels as if the sound is coming from inside your head. With 3D audio, it feels as if it's coming from the world around you. We wanted 3D audio to be something that anyone can experience, something that would work with ordinary headphones that you might already own, or with TV speakers. We also wanted to be sure that there were no trade-offs for the game developers. We didn't want to put them in the position of, for example, having to choose between having more enemies on the battlefield and supporting 3D audio. Our solution for all of that was a dedicated 3D audio unit in our main custom chip. The custom engine that drives Tempest 3D Audio Tech supports hundreds of sound sources, and each sound source can need massive amounts of floating point calculations. Luckily, we have a way of doing that. GPUs are extraordinarily good at floating point calculations. So what we ended up using for 3D audio is a compute unit, just like the ones in the GPU, but this time customized for 3D audio. Part of what we do with 3D audio is create a sense of locality, which is to say that you have a very good idea of where the sound is coming from. 3D audio also creates a sense of presence, which is to say a feeling that you are immersed in the world of the game. Presence creates a lot of possibilities for the game director and artistically where they want to take the game. To create that feeling of presence took quite a bit of technical learning. Rain can't just be a rain sound that's being replayed. Instead, it needs to be synthesized from a dozen dynamic 3D audio sources surrounding the player. DualSense wireless controller. Just like the target for audio was to bring in more of your sense of hearing, the target with the DualSense controller was to bring in more of your sense of touch. We did that in two different ways. We added haptics to bring the player more into the world of the game, explosions, footsteps, and we added the adaptive trigger to bring you more in contact with what you have in your hands. Like anything else, there's a lot of different ways to incorporate those features into a controller, so we did massive iteration on it. The haptics that we ended up with in the DualSense work by playing tailored vibrations through the controller. Those can be sent to the left side or the right side, which gives you additional feedback about what in the world of the game that you're interacting with. Those vibrations aren't audio, but they are mostly in audio frequencies, and so typically they are created by the sound designers. The haptics also really bring home what your feet and hands are doing. Sometimes that's obvious, like in Spider-Man, you're shooting webs. Sometimes that can be surprising, though. My favorite moment in Ghost of Tsushima is that sensation when you're riding on your horse, and you can really feel the difference between galloping across dirt or mud or stone. The other big new feature in DualSense is adaptive trigger. You can feel what the player character is holding in its hands. The way we do that is by changing the resistance of the trigger. Is it easy to pull? Is it hard to pull? We can also make it feel like the trigger is fighting you. With previous controllers, Alt-Fire required a different button or a different button combination, but with DualSense, we can achieve that functionality by looking at how far the player is pulling the triggers. In Returnal, for example, you select from one of two firing modes. Whether you shoot a basic shot or the Doombringer depends on how much you depress the trigger. Deathloop has a really interesting use of adaptive trigger. When your gun jams, you can feel it immediately in the controller. Or when you're out of bullets, there's no resistance, you just get a click. Because there's two triggers with separate control, and also the haptics are independently specifiable for the left and right side of the controller, dual wielding works quite well. You can really feel the weapon that you're holding in each hand. That completes the tour of the technologies behind PlayStation 5. At the end of the day, we're providing tools to game creators. And as for how they choose to use those tools, well, the fun starts now.
As digital games become more readily available with regular discounts, some gamers prefer to buy digitally, but that isn't reportedly the case with PlayStation fans. Sony released the PS5 over a year ago, and according to a recent report, PS5 owners prefer boxed games to physical ones. Global Sales Data UK has been tracking the PS5's sales from its launch in November 2020 to the end of August 2021 in addition to observing physical and digital copies of games sold. The data discovered by GamesIndustry.biz has been compiled from physical games sales in 23 countries and digital game sales from 49 countries. All the major publishers are represented in this report, but some of the indie game publishers may be omitted from the report. Global sales data shows that physical copies are still consistently outselling digital games, with physical games accounting for 51% more sold copies than digital downloads over the course of the PS5's first 10 months in the market. This trend of purchasing physical over digital has only skewed more in favor of physical games as more gamers are able to get their hands on a PS5. With November 2020 showing less physical sales and August 2021 found a boom in physical sales. Digital titles saw a noticeable increase in sales between December 2020 and January 2021, but physical titles are still overall outperforming digital ones on PS5. PS5 owners who prefer to buy digitally seemingly wait for the PlayStation Store's winter sale to purchase in bulk according to global sales data. December and January both sold 870,000 during these 2 months, a figure that still falls short of the lowest performing retail sales. The recent report showed that March 2021 was the lowest point for retail game sales, with only 880,000 games sold during the month. Although physical PS5 games are consistently outselling their digital counterparts, the global sales data report shows that November 2020 saw the opposite. Given the fact that the PS5 was released in November 2020, this may be due to the availability of physical games such as Demon's Souls or Spider-Man Miles Morales in stores, or just to the convenience of purchasing digitally on the first day of owning a next-gen console. Global sales data shows that in November 2020 digital game downloads accounted for 950,000 units compared to 840,000 physical game sales. December 2020 saw a large increase in overall PS5 game sales, with 5 retail titles sold for every 4 digital PS5 purchases. According to global sales data, the end of August had increased this figure to 3 physical game sales for every 2 digital games, giving physical games a further edge over their digital counterparts. 10.14 million retail games were sold for PS5 between the console's launch in August 2021, with digital games only accounting for 7.51 million in sales during the same time frame. It's good to see people supporting physical media, as it is one of the key things to keep alive as gaming industry moves forward. Sony has been filing patents in recent months for its PlayStation 5 hardware and software. These all hint at what the company has in store to improve its services and technology in the future. Some of the recent patents Sony filed include a multi-GPU system for cloud gaming, which aims to enhance the graphical capabilities when playing cloud games on its PlayStation systems, and some related to PSVR 2 and etc. The latest patents filed by Sony are also for the PlayStation console, revolving around the PS5 and its faceplates. The sleek white has been the default color for it since it launched, with no additional colors or official custom faceplates available ever since. With Sony not providing official alternatives to what can be placed on the console, others have launched their own PS5 faceplate manufacturers with additional colors and designs. These have usually ended with Sony taking legal action to shut these manufacturers down. After a year of Sony threatening legal action against these tech manufacturers, a new patent document from the company was published on the United States Patent and Trademark Office. The patent describes an ornamental design for a cover for an electronic device, along with images of the PS5, and the covers it has from many different angles. Sony is considering its own swappable faceplates. This can result in faceplates themed after some of its games. They should have done this early, so we could have gotten faceplates for Miles Morales, Demon's Souls, Ratchet and Rivet, and for Sackboy and Astro. I hope they do custom faceplates for the upcoming releases. Speaking of the PS5, hacker group Fail0 Verflow successfully gets access to PS5 root keys, just under a year before the console celebrated its first anniversary. From generation to generation, consoles are hacked to perform other tasks, and the PS5 has just started down that path. A longtime hacking group known as Fail0 Verflow has made some headway in hacking the PS5, with the console just days away from its first anniversary. When it comes to hacking a video game console, if someone can breach its security far enough and find its root key, they can trick the console into performing other tasks that it was not initially designed for. Fail0 Verflow notoriously cracked the PS3 at the beginning of the 2010s, which was followed by another hacker named GeoHot releasing the PS3 root key to the public, prompting Sony to take legal action against them. Console manufacturers implement security to prevent misuse of their products, and naturally, once a methodology is discovered to do so, the manufacturer will likely do what it takes to shut it down. GeoHot was met with a warning to never tamper with Sony products ever again. Fail0 Verflow recently announced that it successfully retrieved the PS5's root keys. The news comes in a pair of tweets, the first showing an illegible string of code for the uninformed with the caption, "Another one bites the dust." Sometime after, Fail0 Verflow quoted that tweet with an explanation, writing, "Translation, we got all symmetric PS5 root keys. They can all be obtained from software including per console root key, if you look hard enough." Like when Fail0 Verflow accessed the PS3, it did not publish the PS5's root key, nor has any other party done so yet. As of this moment, Sony has not made any statement regarding the development. While it is definitely discouraged by Sony to jailbreak its devices, the problem during the PS3 era was the public dissemination of the jailbreaking process, the release of the PS3 root keys, not necessarily the fact that it had been accomplished. Nonetheless, Sony will likely want to know exactly what Fail0 Verflow did to access that information so that it can prevent it from happening going forward. Fail0 Verflow also jailbroke the PS4 shortly into its life, getting the console to run Linux, and play a modded version of Pokemon Emerald. It is pretty surprising to see how quickly Fail Zero Verflow hacked the PS5. The biggest things to watch for going forward then are what Fail Zero Verflow does with its newfound information, and how Sony responds if it chooses to. Considering how Sony is already dealing with limited PS5 supply, the last thing it probably wants is another lawsuit. The PS5 would have been hacked eventually, but most probably expected it to take a bit longer than this. These hackers are going crazy. Okay, so, to round up today's topics, we have another thing to discuss. Arguably one of the most popular names in the video game industry, Hideo Kojima is also well remembered by his fans as a pop culture aficionado. Whether it be about music, film, or popular TV series, Kojima shares honest thoughts on social media about his most recent discoveries, often showcasing how much he enjoys a variety of entertainment genres. Now, it seems his development company Kojima Productions is taking its founders' interests to heart, with an announcement that it is launching a dedicated TV, film, and music division. With the recent release of the director's cut of Death Stranding, many of Kojima's fans are likely interested to find out what the developer's next steps will be. With no official news coming from Kojima Productions, the online community seems to have no choice but to run on Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid rumors just to sate the curiosity of the fanbase. However, with the announcement of the new division, new Kojima Productions projects will likely be revealed to the general public soon, even though they may not all be video game related. In a recent news post, Kojima Productions officially announced that it is expanding through a new business division that will focus on film, TV, music, and other forms of entertainment. The division will be spearheaded by another video game industry veteran, Riley Russell. Russell spent close to 30 years with PlayStation, in a variety of roles such as Chief Legal Officer and Vice President of Business Affairs. The new division will be based in Los Angeles, California, and the team's focus will be to grow awareness for any of the upcoming Kojima Productions projects that are under development. Yoshiko Fukuda, the business development officer of Kojima Productions, also shared that another goal of the new division is to discover new ways to entertain the company's current captured audience, and go beyond the already familiar landscape of the video games industry. This might mean that Kojima's unique video game concepts may be applied to other entertainment categories, such as full-length films, soundtracks, and even video-on-demand series. On the official Kojima Productions Twitter post, many of the fans seem very pleased by the announcement. Some have even said that films are what Kojima should have been working on in the first place, while others were just ecstatic at the idea of Kojima's out-of-this-world video concepts translated into other forms. Hopefully Kojima Productions provides more details about its future projects, so that fans will have something exciting to look forward to in the days to come. And that's all for the video, guys. Like and share the video for a greater audience. Comment your thoughts on the topics, and donations are always appreciated. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, and until then, from SMPV, it's goodbye.